Okay, guys, let's get started. We have a couple people online for the sense of time and being punctual. I'm going to just get rolling. My name is Charlie Mops. I'm the Director of Public Works for the town of Longboat Key. I've been a faithful employee of yours for at least 6 years now. I'm going to let the rest of the team introduce themselves. That way, the people online can actually see their picture as they introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mark Stroik. I work with a company called First Line Coastal. We are coastal engineers consultant to the town.
Good evening. My name is Tara Hollis. I'm with Wildan Financial Services, and I put together and helped put together the funding methodology for this program.
We're having a little bit of audio technical problems. I think we're going to have our IT gentleman come over here just to correct that reverb that everybody's hearing, and it's annoying. Try. All right, test. Is that better? Oh, that's much better. Okay, thank you very much. All right, so what we're going to be talking about today is our the Waterway Navigation Maintenance Program that the town has been really attempting to establish since the mid-90s. And I'm going to go through this by showing you the websites that were developed on behalf of this program. And that way you guys, if you had any questions or whatnot, you'll have all the resources really through one click. So if you get onto the Town of Longboat Key, the main website, the first button right here on the bottom is the navigation maintenance program. If that button ever goes away, don't worry about it, because under residents, it's going to be right here and it will always be here. So if the program continues, that's where you would go to see updates on potential future projects within the program. So if I click on that, it brings us to this, which the top part of the page will always have, like, what's the next meeting that's coming up, and we'll have a link. That way, if you want to, sit at your house and actually participate, you have that freedom to do so. And then under that, it just has some messaging that we have in here and some of the frequently asked questions that we typically get. When we start getting like the same question more than once, we'll have the answer and the question on these websites. That way, it might have already been answered. So it's a good way to kind of communicate with the public. Why this project matter? You're going to see a lot of this information in the presentation I'm about to give you. And you can get right to that presentation by clicking here. And if you want to know, like from our main page, hey, what is this going to cost me? That's a lot of times that's the main question we're getting. You can just literally scroll right down to this link right here. This link right here, right underneath your property assessment details, will bring you to a GIS site where you can either just program, put in your address or find yourself on a map, click on it, and it will actually tell you that. But I'm going to actually demonstrate all this as we go. So if I go into here, it's going to bring us to the First Line Coastal. If you don't want to wait the 5 seconds, you can just click the link and it will just bring you right there. And as you can see, this system was established by Mark and his team on our behalf. And in it holds a lot of information. I'll scroll to the side because I made the mistake of not the last time. But if you go into this, you'll have a lot of drop-down menus with some really interesting information. This one here, the waterway conditions on Longboat Key, essentially they went out and did a survey of every canal, drove it with a boat, a 21-foot boat, an aqua sport. They actually had the camera on the top, the 360 camera that mimics exactly like if you took the little guy and put him on a Google map and you can go up and down a street. They literally did this with a boat. So you can see where the shoalings are and everything else. But if you click on this part right here, it's going to come up with what is the canal sheets. The canal sheets, and I like to keep this sheet open because a lot of times the questions lead to like, whoa, what about this? What about that? It's broken down between all of these, and all of your canals are numbered. So all you have to do is find the number of your canal, go to your canal sheet. It will show your existing condition and what the end games we're trying to achieve on your behalf. And it has a bunch of other information. They actually did a boat survey while they're in there. They looked at the average size of a vessel, the average width of a vessel, because of, he's been a captain for as long as longer than I have. He can like look at a vessel, look up the manufacturer information, and find out what the draft of that vessel is. So all that information is actually in this. That way you can see, is the canal meeting the needs and the service levels of the people currently utilizing them. So there's, like I said, there's a bunch of information. The canal sheets, this is just one of them. This is Canal 1, obviously. It shows all the existing condition, the design parameters. It's permitted a 20-foot wide canal. And then, it tells what permit might be already associated with it. So, I mean, there's been a lot of effort and a lot of research that went behind this. And then the current condition is a D minus. So there's like, it's navigable, but almost barely. If once the program's up and operational, we're hoping to get it up to at least a B minus, and these parameters are actually explained a little bit more in there, and it has a depiction and it has some more, the goals, the goals of the program for that specific canal. If we go back and we scroll down, why now? It has some of the messaging that we're going to talk through tonight. The program funding details, it kind of tells like we're looking to collect up, in and around $9 million within that first 5 years. It's always been designed as a pay-as-you-go program. So, we'd have to collect money in order to have enough money in the pocket to go ahead and actually go forward with a project. But after that first 5 years, we're looking to reduce that initial assessment in half. So in year 6, at least in half. So when we start getting into the maintenance part of the program, because right now we're kind of in restoration. The last time any of the canals in the town were dredged was in 2003. So 23 years ago was the last time there was any effort to make these canals navigable. Again, if you go into here, it brings you to kind of the same place the other link will take you to. Save your questions to the end. We'll be able to answer everything. We're going to have a big Q&A at the end, so write them down. We want to collect them. And then in here, you can zoom to any property, or you can actually just put in your address. And you can actually see what your assessment will be for the first 6 years if you're a canal fronting property, and what your millage would be if you're a canal fronting property. And if you're not a canal fronting property, what your millage only would be. And again, we'll get more into that. More program information is where we house the presentation I'm about to go through. So obviously you can see I just went through it. This is just an introductory slide, and then one of them is, protecting our waterways is vitally important for the quality of life of our citizens. That's, as staff, we look at our canals as another infrastructure that kind of needs maintaining, like our roads. So the first pictures, as you can see, you're on a barrier island. There's, being a unique community that we are, boating is part of that unique community, just like our beaches, fishing, any other recreational amenity that we provide. As we move through, this program actually, it basically supports both, and it aligns with the vision and mission of the town, where the natural assets of a barrier island combine with cultural and recreational amenities. Well, canals are recreational amenities. To vigorously maintain and preserve Longboat Key status as a premier residential and visitor spot. Again, those things are one of the reasons why people buy property on Longboat Key. To go to the beach, to have a waterfront property where they can have a boat in their backyard. It's one of those things that are a driving force behind the potential development of this program. So, our property values and quality of life revolve around clean, navigable water. You happen to you have the unique opportunity to live in one of the only 14 or so national marine estuaries. Sarasota Bay is a national marine estuary. It was designated that a long time ago. the health of that bay is doing really well right now. We actually work a lot with the Sarasota Bay Estuary Program and do grant funding opportunities with them. But this program, in some ways, as I'll demonstrate, actually will support what they're looking for. And waterways are a shared amenity that support each of us. And I'll get into like some of the sharing that those waterways do, even if you're not on a waterway. So the issue was first brought to the commission back in 1996. In 1996, they actually did a bunch of studies. They hired other people and other consultants at the time. They did some legal reviews and everything else to try to establish a canal maintenance program, like a navigation maintenance program. Back then, you fast forward to 2007, and then there was a recession. And at that recession, the thing, it fell off. When I got hired, because I was for 15 years, Charlotte County's, I was in charge of all their coastal programs, and then include about over 300 miles of navigable channel that I had to keep navigable. And most of those were residential canals like we have, or access channels just like we have, and including like beaches. So when they learned, oh, I got this kind of expertise that I've been doing, it kind of revigorated the whole concept and how did you do it down there, what's going in. So I started doing a bunch of research, and through 12 to 15 presentations to the commission since I've been here, we've got to this point. We've hired great consultants that got us to the point where we're able to potentially push a program forward. And as you can see, over 30 reviews and public hearings were conducted on behalf of this potential program. Delays because, 23 years ago was the last time we dredged, but those delays because of, economic reasons, storm reasons, and everything else, they led to reduced navigability. And, that navigability is threatening the quality of life for those people who actually utilize some of those canals. So why now? Well, we've been kicking the can down the road for, since 1996, and I think this is the opportunity right now, is the fact that we've gotten it to the point where we have no other group or no other commission has gotten us to the point where we're at right now, where we're at the point in May and June at those two meetings to have the ability to move forward with the hearings that would actually establish this program, the public hearings. So what's the plan? Well, the commission told us, make sure that it's responsible phased waterway navigation maintenance program, restoring and maintaining safe and navigable channels, improving and maintaining stormwater. If you look at like a lot of these upland canals, which I will say the residential canals, look up and down them, and you'll see drainage pipes leading right out into those. And some of those drainage pipes come right off of Gulf of Mexico Drive. Some of those drainage pipes come off of other areas that aren't even associated with the neighborhood by which those drainage pipes are leading to. Those drainage pipes are one of the contributing factors towards siltation of those canals. And so if we can help maintain that stormwater system through the dredging of this, it could be a win. It mimics the 80-20 beach program. So currently, every time we do we go for bond referendum like I did back in 2021, or actually probably 2019, 2020, to do the 2021 project, which was a $37 million project. It mimics the way the U.S. citizens pay for that. Like the citizens on the Gulf side pay 80%. The ones on the Bay side pay 20%. The demarcation line is the Gulf of Mexico Drive. So one of the things the commission said is, hey, why don't we try to like mimic that idea? Because it's one that's known. It was known and it was approved. And by having a plan in place and by having a program in place, it's going to reduce long-term costs. So what are some of the benefits? Again, recreational boater, it's maintaining the waterways so that they can get in and out of those canals, and then people can go visit those areas of those nice fishing spots around Bayou Hammock and whatnot. It makes it so you can actually get to these locations. improves and maintains our water flow and stormwater. It reinforces appeal for real estate and tourism. You know, if you live on a canal and you can actually say you're going to sell your house and you're like, I live on a municipal maintained waterway, that might drive up the value of your property a little bit. Potential reuse of qualified dredge material. So in your canals, you have material that needs to come out, but we also have a 3 to 4 acre mitigation site, seagrass mitigation site. I need about 24,000 cubic yards to fill in order to create that mitigation site, and that's tied to this program. And it comes at a hefty cost. But if I can use some of the material from your canals in order to fill that, it's a win-win situation. Environmental enhancements. So some of our communities, our neighboring communities on the East Coast, actually do dredging for bioload reduction, where they have green and blue algae blooms. They actually dredge to get the detritus, which is the decaying material, off the bottom of that canal, which is a bioload. Right, so bioloads like this actually contribute to, when we have red tide, those things actually feed those nasty organisms. So if you dredge it and get rid of it and put it in a deep pocket or get it gone, then that material won't be there to feed those those nasty things. And then the potential for future FEMA reimbursement. When you're on a maintained and monitored, channel, you can literally go to FEMA and say, hey, FEMA, this storm caused this damage. Can you pay for it? And I'll give you an example. I had 2 big dredging projects going on in Charlotte County on the Peace River side, and Hurricane Charlie came through. So I had to enact the hurricane plan for both of those contractors. And before they left, I had my surveyors go out there and say, what did they get to and how much did they dredge, and give me an as-built survey to this point. And then after Hurricane Charlie came through, it really silted in a lot of the work that was just being done. I was able to go to FEMA and say, can you pay for this? And they're like, here you go. And so I was able to, with no cost to the citizens there, because then we were able to prove that they were in a maintained navigation waterway program. How do we pay for it? Well, fair, simple, transparent. Those are the things that these folks have to look at, because it has to be defendable. And they use those things to make sure that for you all, we're doing things in a fair, simple, and transparent method. 80% of the cost would be paid by the direct access boaters. So if you live on a canal and you have a boat, or you have the potential to put a boat there, you would pay 80%, you would bear the 80% of the cost. If you do not, then you would pay 20% of that cost. And like I told you before, we're estimating in around $9 million is what we need to collect within that first 5 years. So about $2 million a year, you can think, to get us to the point where we need to be in order to get all of our canals restored. Because right now we're in the process of restoring canals, we're not maintaining them. You can't go through 23 years of neglect and think you're just maintaining. And then after that, we're looking at initially year 6, year 7, a $1 million cost. And then we'll be assessing what's the shoaling rates, where do we need to hit? Can we actually drive those costs even further now? And by doing so, we're looking to halve at least the initial assessments. So the methodology was, 30% of the entire program would be paid for ad valorem millage. So everybody pays into that. And how that breakdown goes, if you're direct access, you pay 10% millage, and you pay 20%, you pay 70%, which is the assessment portion of it. So your total would be 80%. If you're non-direct access, then you would only be paying 20% of the total cost of the program. And what we did was you just kind of broke down the island a little bit here, and there's maps up here, and there's more maps that we can show you. And when we get to the online portion, when I'm walking you through how to look this stuff up, it's delineated just like this, just different colors. So why does it work? It's fair, familiar, consistent with past practices. The past practices is 80-20 was, beach. If you live, if you live west of Gulf of Mexico Drive, you paid the 80%. If you lived, east of Gulf of Mexico Drive, you didn't. You paid the 20. It saves money in the long run by avoiding these type of emergency actions. You know, when you're out there just doing maintenance, it's kind of like patching a pothole versus repaving an entire road. You know, it's the escalation that we're trying to avoid in the future, and it enhances the overall community value and island resiliency. Again, if the more we can keep the water, keep nice water for our drain pipes to receive, then I think we're providing a little bit better resiliency. And then maintenance minimizes long-term action. I'll give you, one of the examples I like to give is we did this one project on the Mayaco River side. It was a pretty big community, but we were there for over a year because they let their canals get to a point of such disrepair that it took us a year to get them back to the steady state operations. That means a contractor was there all the time. A contractor was, up and down the roads. The equipment was just outside the house. The next time they came back to do that, because now they were a part of that, now they were a part of a maintenance program. All we had to do is hit the access channels and the very dead end parts of the canal. And I had a contract out there for a couple of months, so there is less impact to the community when you have a program. So we're going to get into question and comments, but before we jump right into that, I want to just kind of go through, oops, didn't mean to do that, technology. We're going to go into this, and I'm going to go to the full screen version. Now remember, there's two ways of getting there. You can get right to this same thing from the town's website, or you can go to this website, look through some material, and get into the same thing. If you have a property address, you can just put it in here and you can go right to what you need. Or if you're like, oh, I just want to, I'm curious. I want to see what my neighbor's paying. I'm just going to pick a random house. I don't know who lives there. I'm just pulling it up. This person has a taxable value of over $2 million. They have one EBU. If you have a dock or if you have two docks, it's all one. Or if you don't have a dock, but you have the ability to put in a dock, it's still one. When you look at this, the mill rate's very low. It's 0.063 or 23. So their ad valorem assessment on a $2.6 million property is $162. If their assessment, that's the millage tax is $162. Their assessment, and that's a fixed fee, no matter who we're talking about, is $620. So their yearly assessment is $782 to be in the program. And we broke it down. We actually looked at every condo. We looked at every, even properties that have a shared dock structure. You got Longboat Harbor up in here. Actually, it's a little bit further. Sorry about that. Yeah, that's Spanish Main. Yep, they do too. Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah. So we can go Twin Shores. So if you click on this, you'll see that even in the shared use areas where you have a common element with a docking structure, they actually have, they break it down, because in this, there's probably, actually, this isn't coming up right. Oh, is that the common area? Or do I have to get into like one of these?
I think if you're in a common area, it shows 0.
Yeah. There you go. Because here it is. It's a common area because common areas are not taxable, right? But you have to tie it to a property. So the way it's broken down is they have an ad valorem assessment of 1.25, and then the EBU rate of 620. Assessed value is $20,000. So their combined total annual is $124. After that's for the first 5 years. At year 6, it drops down to $64. And then we're hoping to reduce even that cost further because as we go through and we're able to find out where shoaling rates are and whatnot, we can actually see what's the frequency of action that we need to take. But you have to remember, even in the off years, we're going out monitoring. We're doing those surveys. So we can go to FEMA. We can see what those shoaling rates are. We can actually develop that level of knowledge that we can actually incorporate into the program and then hopefully even reduce these costs further. But this is like a really easy, user-friendly way of being able to go into any one of these, if you own a slip out here, you know, you're because the property value is only $100,000. Ad valorem rate is only $6.53 plus the assessment, that fixed fee assessment. So you're looking at 626. You know, but you can do that for any property on the entire island. So with that, a couple of other things we're looking to do, and I want to kind of bring this up, and then I'm gonna leave the floor to everybody. That way we can start fielding some questions. We've asked for money to kind of make this program happen sooner, because one of the questions we always ask or always asked is, when can you start dredging? Well, if it's a pay-as-you-go program, we're looking at about year 3 before we can start actually getting a dredge out there. However, we did, reach out because the Water Resource Development Act of 2026 had opened up for mitigation, bayside type mitigation, dredging, relating to dredge activity, that type stuff. So we actually put in an appropriations request through Congressman Buchanan, or whoever wants to jump on the bandwagon and support this for $3 million, because that's about the figure it's going to cost to build the 3-acre mitigation site right here. And what we used for that as justification was, this is the old intercoastal waterway. It's called the Long Bar Channel. It was dredged by the Army Corps of Engineers back in the 1890s. Then in 1916, they realigned the channel to where it currently exists. So if I can get an appropriations to create this, we're going to take the material out of the canals to backfill, because I need, I think I mentioned it, around 24,000 cubic yards of material in order to fill this deep pocket, in order to get it up above the photic zone, so that way seagrasses will grow. And then we're going to take seagrasses from affected canals that we're dredging that might have seagrasses in them, and then transport them over to that spot and put them in. That's the reason why the mitigation sometimes costs a lot of money, because it's a very complicated thing. And then the only other thing that we could do is the potential for floating a short-term loan to get some resources available to start the program earlier. But that would be dependent on whether or not the commission wants to move forward with the program, and we'd have to collect the first dime in order to actually go after the short-term loan. So at that point, I'm gonna leave it open for any questions that you guys might have, and we have all the subject matter experts in the room. That way we can hopefully answer. Go ahead, sir. Mm-hmm.
Is there a gap there?
No, it's a great question. It's based off of these canal surveys. When they went in there, they looked at every boat that existed in there. They looked at the draft, the width, and everything else. And does your canal currently meet the need for the vessels that currently occupy it? And actually, because like I said, Mark's he's a boat captain. He's a certified boat captain. He looks at things as far as crossing and passing and whatnot. Can two vessels, navigate in that same area at the same time? And that's how he makes his determination. That's how we came up with his scoring. So yeah, like you said, it might not need it now, but the mouth of your canal might need it in a couple of years. And so we'll just come by and we'll hit that on your behalf.
No. The surveys themselves. So there's 2 types of surveys we did. One is a bathymetric survey, which is a elevation to measure the depth of the water, the shoals in there. That was completed in 2024. I want to say it was March 2024. Yeah, March 2024. Around the same time, we also initiated the visual surveys to inventory the vessels that were utilizing the canals. But essentially what we did was, number one, we classified each canal with what size vessel was currently using the waterway and what size vessel was appropriate for the waterway. That we certainly have some instances where there's a very small waterway and there might be, I don't know, like a large sailboat or a big cruiser or something usually using it. And also the flip of that, there's lots of waterways that are very large waterways, and maybe there's some jet skis or some flats boats or something that are using it. So we looked at both what was currently using the waterway. We looked at the infrastructure that was in that waterway, what size boat lifts, what size docks, et cetera, and then the size of the waterway itself, to come up with an estimate on what class vessel was appropriate for that design there. The next thing we did is we came in, we looked at the survey data to understand what draft and what width we needed. And we used the combination of those two. Essentially, we came up with a design vessel for each waterway, and whether or not the design vessel could be accommodated in that waterway would give us a green light or yellow light, whatever, for whether or not dredging needed to occur.
Just following up.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is that document? I can't read that. Is that documented? So if like we have a neighbor with a sailboat that can't get it out because the sandbars have gotten so big.
Well, that's
So, I mean, is that documented on here? What you determined was an appropriate vessel, so our neighborhood people could look at it and say, "Do I have a boat in here that they deemed inappropriate?"
It sure is.
Used to be appropriate.
I mean, appropriate. I mean, that's the eye of the beholder, right? And there's certainly lots of times where you can get a larger vessel down, high tide, for example, down a canal that's a little bit more restricted. It doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means it's maybe just that canal wasn't necessarily designed for it. But to answer your question directly, yes, ma'am, it is. Okay. You will notice in each of these there is a design vessel that is shown. And Charlie, if you see in the top there, you see where his mouse is. Just above that, you will see there's an average vessel beam and an average vessel draft in the little table that's above. It says, in this particular case, it says 7 to 10 foot beam and a 2 to 4 foot draft in this particular case. And then the little sketch that you see below is actually that class vessel nestled in the proposed design template. And so in this particular case, the proposed dredging is to a -5 foot depth at what we call mean low water of the average low tide, compared to the average low tide -5 foot, and it's a 20 foot width on what he has on the screen here.
Yep. And a lot of that information too was pulled from previous permits, because like I said, in 2003, the town did do a pretty extensive research and permitting and everything else. So what we did was we looked at what was permitted in the past, because we want to at least mimic that. Yeah. Because otherwise you're having to extend permits, you're having to spend a lot of money and a lot of effort in order to try to do anything outside of that.
There's also in the bottom right on here, you'll see there's a table there that shows, we call it survey info, and that gives an estimate on the total volume that's present in that canal to restore it to the proposed template. So in the case that he has on the screen right here, there's about 1,200 cubic yards of sediment that was surveyed, that's estimated on that March survey, March 2024 date there. There's all sorts of really to be removed to restore that idealized template. Yes.
Yeah. Yes, sir. No, that's a great point. So, this is the navigation maintenance program. He asked if it includes the seawalls as well. Up to the seawalls, okay. No, what we did was we looked and did, again, conditional surveys are not for permit surveys or for construction surveys. There are a couple of passes up and down to get what the edges look like and maybe what the middle looks like, and then you interpolate what would be in between. And it's because it costs a lot of money to get beyond that. But as long as you get to a point where you can actually make a determination, then you can, drive forward a program. Once you get the program going, you could drive forward the actual, the construction level surveys, which are cross-sectional every 100 feet, or some stationing mark, or the Army Corps now allows you to do enough center lines or multi-beam that you can, capture as much information within your dredge template as you can. Yes, sir.
So just to be clear, let's say that you have lifts
Mhm.
docks, or it's called lifts on both sides.
Mhm.
You're just going to do the center,
That's
nothing under the lifts. Is that correct?
Correct, but that you're bringing up a great point because this always comes up in every conversation. Again, what the town's trying to do is repave the road. All right, underneath your up to your lift and underneath your lift, that's your dock and that's your driveway and that's your garage. You know, your lift is your garage. Getting to your garage, you use your driveway. So we're going to establish the center line of those canals again in the widths that were permittable in the past. However, one of the things that we are going to do, and I've done this a lot down in Charlotte County, is when I know a contractor is going to be in your area way ahead of time, I get you guys their information. And that way you can say, hey, while you're here, take a couple of scoops out of here. They only charge by the bin load. You don't have to pay for the mobilization. You don't have to pay for the disposal of it because wherever we're putting our material as a town, we'll actually allow that material to go in the same spot. So it's an
option that we contract with the contractor.
That's exactly it.
About
Yeah, and it's a win-win situation. We were having a sidebar conversation earlier, and in the past, I'll get you, sir, right after. Like I started to do that like at some of those canals down in Charlotte County, and at first you'd get onesie twosie. The next time they came around to do that maintenance, it was like every other person was like asking them because you got that done for how much? You know what I mean? Instead of paying thousands, you're paying hundreds. And it definitely is a benefit for everybody around. Sir, you had a question back there.
Do I need this one? I wish I would have read some of this stuff beforehand, so maybe I should save some of my questions. But is there any canal that is excluded from this? And I saw in one of your pictures you had one of these old canals with mangroves. And I live by a canal now that is ill-maintained mangrove on one side.
Right.
How do you deal with that? Because it's not as wide as it should be anymore.
It isn't, and you're bringing up a good point. Again, you're probably up in, Wananesco has one of those canals, so doesn't the other side of Bayview because of the mangrove line.
To be specific, it's Jungle Queen Way. It's
Jungle Queen, yes, that's another one. So what happens is like you have these mangrove fringes and they like to come over. So as part of the program, I have to trim those in order to make sure that I can get the dredging contractor in there. And so we'll hire the right people at that time to trim those mangroves in order to allow for the access for the dredging contractor. And we used to do it a lot, and it happens everywhere. Obviously, we all love mangroves. We don't want to harm them, but we will do them within the permittable standards that are allowed by FDEP. And that's the Florida Department of Environmental Protection.
Does it mean that you're going to restore it to the width it was supposed to be or not?
Well, what they would allow us to, because sometimes, with red mangroves, you can only trim out to the waterward most prop root of a red mangrove in a vertical line.
Because in many of these canals where we have mangroves, we still have mangroves in the canal from the hurricane.
Right. I mean, again, there are certain things that are permittable and certain things that are not. We would do everything we can to try to either achieve the permits to affect change, but sometimes that's up to the permitting agency.
Okay. One final question. Even if you cannot start to dredge in 3 years until you have the funding, etc., are you everything that is on that list when I get to it and read it? Will be done in 5 years? Is that what you tell me?
Yeah, that's why the initial program, like dredging all the canals that need to be dredged, like obviously this gentleman just indicated that his canal doesn't need to be dredged, but within the next 5 years, if I have to go in there, we would, because if the mouth of his waterway, shoals in or something, the reason why we're collecting that much money is in order to get them all back to that steady state, that 2003 condition.
So can you clarify the assessment? When you were going through your map, you said those buildings that have direct access and a boat dock. I mean, if you're in a condo building and it sits on the water, but there's no boat dock, is that a indirect? Is that
you would not pay if you don't have a boating facility? You would not pay the assessment. All you would pay would be the millage.
Okay.
Now, there are condos that are really cool, really unique, where they have a condo, but they also have like a docking facility. And so, however many docks there are in there, those get split up by the number of residential units in there. So if there's 100 condos and there's 10 docks, each one of those condos will pay, 10% of an assessment towards it, because at any point in time, any one of those might have the ability to use it.
Okay.
Sir, you had another question?
How
Okay.
how you prioritize which canals get done first? How do you do that? Is it by A, B, C, E?
No, it is. That assessment that they provided is one of the key points. And the question was for the people online: how are we going to prioritize which canals get done first and which ones get done later? There was an assessment that was done. We would want to try to hit the ones that are in the worst shape. However, we also have a permit right now standing out there that has 15 identified canals that that I have to dredge in connection with that seagrass mitigation area, but they can only provide about 8,000 to 9,000 cubic yards. Remember, I said I need 24,000. So I'm going to be hunting for material in these canals in order to try to get, because it's cheaper than trucking in material, putting it on a barge, taking it out to the site and depositing it. If I can dredge it, put it on my barge, take it over here and dump it, then it's cheaper. And so we're going to try to maximize that effort in order to meet the goals of the seagrass mitigation area, which is a benefit to the national preserve, benefit to everybody here, because every acre of seagrass actually is, it houses like up to 40,000 juvenile fish. So that's just enhancing our environment that we all, come to love and enjoy. So that's really the way we're going.
It actually answered my question, because we live in Sleeping Lagoon,
Mhm.
area, and they're very shallow, and our docks are on one side, and then we have a very shallow area behind our home. The dock area where you could park a boat is one area, but the other area is so shallow. I mean, you see sandbars all over the place.
Right.
So in the dredging of the canals, how will that affect those areas? Or can you scoop out and put it into the preserve area that you need?
Yeah, and again, that was one of the things that Mark and his gang went out and did. They did a couple of hundred grab samples and borings to see which canals we could use, because the permits, especially the FDEP and the Army Corps permits, they have a quality, not just quantity, of sand that you have to be able to put out there. Our argument is, well, it's in the same environment. It's literally a mile from where we're going to drop it. So, the good news is a lot of those areas are showing good sand. So, again, we'll hunt for wherever we can. But if we can't put it there, it doesn't mean it's not going to be done within that first 5 years. We would just come back and then create what's called a DMMA. I used to just call them spoil sites. And so it's just an upland area where we physically put that material, allow it to dry, and truck it off to like a landfill or something like that to be used as top cover. Yeah. It's okay, man.
How are you guys going to roll out the costs? Is it going to be similar to on our tax statement where the underground, you could pay it in all one shot, or
No, there won't be the ability to pay it in one shot, but it's going to be rolled out like that. The question was for the people online: how will this assessment be rolled out? Will it be able to be paid all up front, or will it be like that was the way the undergrounding was? Or will it just show up on your tax bill as a yearly assessment? It's going to show up on your tax bill as a yearly assessment for now. We haven't gotten direction otherwise.
will it start with next year's bill?
Yes, because that's why I mentioned earlier, I want to go in front of the commission in April, because we have 2 more of these in March that we want to gather this information and be able to compile it and give Jamie enough time to say, here's all the comments and here's all the stuff, and make a packet for the commissioners to, and by the way, you have Commissioner Branham there and you have Commissioner Coffin right there. I just want to recognize them in the room. But to be able to go to them and say, this is the comments, these are the type of questions we're getting, this is the overall response. These are the amount of people that attended. These are the amount of organizations we reached out to have them have the clear picture so they can provide direction at that point to staff. Because in May is reading one of the public hearing to establish the assessment in the millage. And then in June is second and final hearing on that. So we don't have a lot of time, but we're making the best effort we can, especially because we're back in season. We're trying to reach out as much as we can to every community group we can to try to get this message off, but more importantly, collect data back, collect feedback back from you all. And I will say this, one of the best ways is online. You'll see there's you go on to this, there'll be an email address. You just have to click it and your email will open up. Email us your questions because that's the best way in writing for us to get your comments and or your questions back. So that way we can compile and, like questions and and if there's enough times that question's been asked, it's bound to be in our FAQs. Yes, sir. That's okay, sir.
I aren't infectious.
It's okay.
So don't worry about it. I'll go online, I'll use your instructions to do that. To specifics that way. But I do question access to the water during that. The question is really, when is a canal to canal? Live on south side. 6 or 7 properties, one are open water. There is no property in the other side.
Right.
South of it. Is that water access?
Well, and again, if you go on here, you'll see wherever there is these blue lines, those are considered canals. So let's take example of James Island where, you have an open water canal, kind of like what you're describing, where you have boats on one side and then nothing on the other side. That's a canal because that canal was created. And you can see the big sandbar and big grass flats right here. And there's an access channel here that kind of feeds these guys. So even if up in the Hideaway Bay area, these canals are super deep, they still need this access channel. Well, this access channel needs some dredging, so it's going to be specific to your property and to your neighborhood. But I do advise looking at this because the aerial does tell a picture. Yeah.
No access channel. It is part of to the drive. That are on.
So down here, down by Dry Dock, you said.
Yeah.
He's on Halyard, which is the southern. If you go just a little bit north, Charlie.
The north end.
Nope. Come back down to Country Club Shores. Where Country Club Shores goes from the long canals to the short canals. Yep.
That's at the bottom of your.
The last waterway on the south.
Oh,
right there.
So
that's it.
Yeah. So
half of the right side of Halyard
but
is open water.
Yeah, but this dredge canal that needs to be maintained.
You will often hear us refer to this. Sometimes you'll see, you see the title at the top, Longboat Key Waterway Program. Sometimes we use the word canal a little bit interchangeably with waterway, but maybe more properly, waterway is the term that we probably should be using. As far as the extent of the waterways and all this, our objective is normally to extend them far enough to get you to open water to where you can open it up and you're not draft restricted anymore. So in this scenario, this is definitely one of the waterways that was on the list. And you can see likewise, your neighbors were.
6 or 7 and low tide.
Yes. Yeah. I'm familiar with that waterway. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And again, just like the gentleman behind you, if it doesn't need to be dredged in the first cycle, it's not to say that, this is a program. So in the future, if it needs it, it will get it.
I got that message.
Yeah. You're welcome, sir. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I am not going to be very popular because I don't have a dock.
Okay.
Okay. All I am is a taxpayer who is wondering about the way that, let me put it, I'm going to quote you and I wrote you down. You said the dredging was 20 years ago.
23, yes.
20, 20. And because we haven't dredged, this is threatening the quality of life those living at this canal.
Okay.
According to
Okay.
your paper.
Yep.
So then I don't understand. If I don't live in a canal, my quality of life is not being threatened. Why do I have to pay 20%?
Well, because again, it's a combined, just because, let me just give you a couple of analogies. Oh, if you want to, you can continue. Go ahead. Okay.
Appreciate it very much. You say that the 80-20 mimic the same allocation that we did beach.
Mhm.
But the problem is the way back, 1952, the state of, in the case of State versus Anna Maria Island, there was a group of owners, and this is the reverse side of it, of the members on that island said, we don't have to pay refurbishment and the renourishment of the beach. And the court held all of you benefit from the beach. This is not the same situation. We don't all benefit from it. Really don't think we should be taxed at all. Now,
And again,
argue that some of the drains and everything goes down and it's the private ways to your docks, which you already said they're like garages. Why should I be paying for you to go to your dock? Now, you say it's because it's filling up. I don't have a boat. I could have a canoe, and I only need enough to a canoe. I only need a little bit that much to canoe down the dock or any place. Why are you taxing me? Just because we are the wealthy people who are looking on the side of the ocean? I'm tired of us being taxed and taxed. Since I moved in here 4 years ago, my taxes have increased dramatically. But I don't see any additional services. As a matter of fact, we are being totally exposed to the ocean, and you people are not doing anything on our beach.
okay. I mean, we're going to capture your comments. Again, that's why we're here. We're here to collect information. As for the beach, I can speak to that. We have a FEMA claim that's currently in review. We're looking to start another beach nourishment project in October of 27. And so we are pushing forward to try to restore our beaches. As far as the other comments, they're essentially, we understand, we hear what you're saying. We're going to capture that information so we can provide it to the commission so they can make ultimately the decision.
Here.
Any other questions?
Give that to mediate the low spots on the island where flooding occurs.
No, I mean, quite honestly, this material is better used. It's better used because of what it is for out here. Because if you put, again, one of the things you got to think about this, because I've done it, you would have to wait over a year for the dredge material to dry before you could even compact it enough in order to meet like a building thing. Because when we used to do in Charlotte County, every once in a while we would get an upland owner that said, hey, look, I'll pay the severance fee. I don't mind if you use our lot, if you can leave me some material. They would have to wait over a year before they could start building on that vacant piece of property. And a lot of times they didn't really care because they were just trying to elevate it and whatnot. Then they could come in with some more fill. But when it comes out of the marine environment like it does, it's almost better to put it back in the marine environment where you can. You know, we're not trying to build like another rookery or anything out there. We're just trying to fill. This is that deep hole that I was telling you about that we have it already permitted to make this better. I actually dove plane this with NOAA and looked at the conditions. They're the ones who approved that location. It goes down to almost 12 feet deep. It would be done at the beginning or with the beginning phase of that project, of the program, the initial project. If we got that appropriations, it would be quicker. If we were able to do the short-term loan, we could do it quicker. But the way the program was always established was, pay as you go. Any other questions?
So you won't be floating a bond or anything like that?
Not yet. Not yet.
Did the subaqueous pipe get installed?
That's all right. The question was, did a subaqueous pipe get installed?
Because you're gonna need some fill for that too, right?
Well, we will. And one of the things we were initially looking at is the potential using some more of our dredge material from the canals, use the project to pay for the placement of that material out here as well. But no, it hasn't. It's currently in permitting. We literally just had a meeting today about it. The permit, we got an RFI, which is a request for additional information from the state. Our team has answered it, and we're just waiting to get response from the Army Corps. We're still moving forward with that project, hopefully for a summer start for construction. We're waiting for the design consultant to tell us, and also the contractor, who's Garney, they're a really good firm. They do this all the time. They might want to just import fill because of the liability of having two contractors working around the subaqueous pipe, that if somebody damages, who's responsible? So it was something we're looking into still, though. Ma'am, you had another question. Blythe.
Okay, I came late, so if you already did this, just stop me.
No, it's okay.
On the methodology for the assessment, and I'm bringing baggage from undergrounding. So we've got two components, an ad valorem and a non-ad valorem.
Correct.
And so the ad valorem is a certain percent of your property value?
Correct. It's
Okay.
based on a millage rate, and the millage rate is 0.0623.
Okay, and then the non-ad valorem, that's the benefit units?
That's the benefit unit. That's a fixed fee of $620.
And like with the undergrounding, they determined your benefit units based on your acreage, lot size.
Right.
Are we doing the same thing here?
No, we're basing it off of like each residential unit would have one benefit unit because they have a boat, or the ability to have a boat.
Okay, and then
It's different than acreage. It's different than linear footage, which is some ways other municipalities do it.
And for like condos with marinas,
Yes.
and how did you determine the number of benefit units?
That's again, that was previously stated, but say no, it's fine. I don't mind repeat. Say you have like a 100 unit condo and there's 10 docks, then each condo pays 0.1% or 1/10 of a equivalent benefit unit. So 1/10 of the $620, they'd pay $62.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? And we're here, so if you have any individual questions that you might want to ask, we have the team here. We're more than happy to answer any question you might have. Sir, in the back.
And what needs to be done? How do you see, or how do you identify where your priorities are? Is it obvious to see that sort of where
Oh, as
the canal has failed, or
That would be more in when you go in and you find your property and you find, like, if you're on this map, which is really great. If I'm on this map, it has the name of every canal, or the number, like 11A, 14, 13, right? If you know you live in here and I live on Canal 13, you could just go to this, which is in that same website, right? These are the canal sheets, and if you scroll down to Canal 13, 8. I should have picked an easier number or more. Yeah, I know. Here I am scrolling. So here's Canal 13. It shows all of that same assessment, and that currently is in a B, so it's in good standing. You know, that canal currently is in good standing, and it shows you this diagram. However, going back to that original map, or you can actually just toggle between the two, 11 services 13. So if you want to see what 11A looks like, and they're shoaling around this corner, they're shoaling in this vicinity. So in order to get there, you still have to get to another channel in order to get out to the deep water access, which is where that terminates.
Is there talked about sort of the depth of it at average low tide? Is there, depending on type of boat that traffics the canal, but is there a minimum depth at average low tide that a canal should have?
Well, and again, it all goes back to like the boat. I can't like necessarily answer that. It's specific to the location, because the canal survey that First Line did and the boat surveys and everything else they did.
Small boats now.
Right. I mean, it just depends. It depends on because you might have a small boat, your neighbor might have one that draws 2 feet. You might have one that draws 10 inches, so they're going to look at that and they're going to design the canal in accordance with its current use or its design use.
I could be mistaken. I'm taking a quick peruse through the canal sheets, but I think that the shallowest canal design that we have, is minus 4 feet MLW. I think.
That's the minimum.
So the letter designation A, B, C, and D, what canal wouldn't be dredged? A C? C is acceptable?
No, not necessarily. Again, we're looking for material in this first run in order to like fill that mitigation area if we move this program forward. So we're going to be looking at maximizing where we can, where the material is suitable to put into that hole. But at the same time, you might be a B, and you like the canal 14 that we just looked at. It was a B, but it would be a B because there's really no work that you need to do in there because it's already meeting the intent. But Canal 11A that services, that might need to have a lot of work done to meet the intent of Canal 14. So that's something that they did. And if you want to have afterwards talk to Mark about how that methodology that they came up with, it's worthwhile. I'm going to go back there first, and then I'll come back. Yes.
So when we look at the PDF file with the canal inventory, so I think some people are probably going to say, okay, well, they had a C+ canal that's going to go to A+. We have a D- that's going to B-. Why aren't we going to A? Mm-hmm. How come my canal's not moving like the target is not the same for everyone? Right. Can you just help us answer that question?
Yes, I can. So the max score for all these, like the max score A+, right? That's what we all tried to get when we were in school. The max score in a lot of places is restricted by physical impediments. Okay, so for example, if we had to design a vessel of 23 foot center console that draws 3 feet, for example, but the entire width of the canal from bank to bank, say seawall to seawall, is only 30 feet wide, turning that vessel around in that canal, you're never going to get deep enough. The canal is restricted by physical impediments at that point. You start looking at things like dock structures and boat lifts and these types of things. And that's a situation where we actually reduce the maximum score that we can get a canal to, because there's actually nothing that we can do with dredging to improve the navigability of that canal. So for the circumstances where you see how come my canal can only get to a B when my neighbor's canal can get to an A, when you look at these canal sheets, you will actually see there's some specific information about turning and meeting vessels and exposures to wind and waves and these types of things. That's usually what's driving it, is the maximum score that canal can get. So if you're standing on the canal, look up and down, and I think it'll become apparent pretty quickly.
All right, ma'am, you have a question.
Okay. Winter content. But I wondered to how much you had with a community. I did very briefly. For example, in Naples, we have the Moorings Bay Special Taxing District. We have East Naples Bay Special Taxing District. They are the only tax the people who are on the docks, who are on the canals. We are not spreading it around the whole Naples. We are going directly to the people who are on the canals. Marco Island, at this very moment, has the same problem. And they are inclining to taxing only the waterfront properties who are directly on the canal. So we have precedent how this is done in other communities in Florida. We are not the first people who face this problem. So I would ask you if you could please do a little research on how that is being done.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Ma'am, I would direct you to, as far as precedent goes, I would direct you to your tax bill for the WCIND tax that you have on your bill right now. And then for those that are canal fronting, you'll note that you also have a canal navigation assessment for those folks. So if you're not on a canal, you don't receive that. But everybody in Sarasota County and Manatee, WCIND, the West Coast Inland Navigation District. Yeah. Right. To this program, nothing. It's a different arrangement what they take care of. But
Yeah, that taxation it feeds WCIND, who does provide grants to include the town. They have provided grants to us in the past, but their primary goal is the maintenance of the intercoastal waterway. All those public channels
public
in and around the
waterways,
intercoastal
yeah,
waterway.
public waterways between the.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my argument on that would be that there is precedent for communities recognizing that navigation is a community asset. You understand? Right? Uh-huh.
You know about that book. This is asking me pay for your driving.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can tell you that the town came to us as their consultant to identify what we thought was an appropriate amount, whether or not the navigation channels, the waterways on Longboat Key should be considered a community asset. Our opinion on that was yes, they are a community asset, that they contribute to the lifestyle on the island. And maybe after, if you'd like to have a chat about it, I'd love to hear your opinions on it. Okay.
Of the total cost, how much is attributable to the 20%? Just out of curiosity, I don't really have a dog in this hunt. I'm just curious. You said 9 million, right?
Well, out of the 9 million, if 20% of the 9 million.
So it is 20% of the 9 million.
Correct.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, 1.8.
I thought that was the case, and that's going to be divided up amongst.
Like all the citizens on the island.
Yeah.
Are there any more questions? Good. All right. Well, thank you very much for attending. We really appreciate the comments. We really do, actually. And I appreciate all the questions too. Thank you so much.